candidates, you might think us reporters are bad, but here's a really tough question from Pat from Newport, an audience member. She said, he or she says, I'm a Newporter, a Democrat, and a retired boomer. There are a lot of us, and we're inveterate voters, meaning they vote all the time. You don't resemble us. Without using the word community, how can you convince us that you can represent us, starting with Mr. Smith?
I think that my mom is goes. A number of us here have parents that are dealing with issues that the aging or older population or baby boomers are facing. Our state is still taxing retirement benefits and military retirement benefits, which is something that needs to change. They're our greatest generation, and one of our greatest generations, and I think that there's more, we need to free up opportunities, and we need to lessen the burdens that people like my mom are facing from an overtaxing government, an overregulated government, and I think we just need to just open up those opportunities.
David Allard, how can you convince Pat that you are worthy of Pat's support?
Well, that is a great question, Pat, wherever you are. I really appreciate it. Number one, it's the right thing to do. But number two, there was wonderful legislation in this year that unfortunately I don't think passed, but to provide tax relief for people that are giving home care and people that may live in the home. And I think that that's something that is changing as the population grows and people don't want to go necessarily to nursing homes. They'd rather stay at home. And I know for me personally, I have one parent with dementia and another parent that takes care of my father. My mother takes care of my father, and I would love to see them get that relief. I think about this often, not because it just is part of my daily life, but because I do knock on doors constantly here in Newport, and I hear it from people. What are you going to do to ensure that our population is cared for? And one of the things I always say is tax relief, and another thing is better access to public transportation. I hear that a lot, and I am committed to working towards that.
Dawn Ware, Pat is skeptical. What do you say?
I think it's really important that for our aging population that we're allowing folks to age in place. We can do a lot more to make sure that we're providing the infrastructure needed to provide a quality of life that allows people to walk, remain active longer. That's going to reduce the healthcare costs. That's going to allow folks to live independently longer. There's a lot of good environmental impacts of that as well. And that infrastructure piece is something that I've talked about throughout my campaign, and I've written numerous letters to the editor about because it is so important, and it's a huge, it should be a huge focus of our spending as well to make sure that these infrastructure projects are in place. I think that another huge component of this is making sure that we're having a conversation about housing costs. Taxes were already mentioned, relief on retirement payments and things like that around taxes are important, but if our housing costs continue to skyrocket, folks aren't going to be able to stay in their homes because they're not going to be able to afford the property tax. And that all goes to how we're looking at our investments. Again, making sure that we're investing our public funds wisely so that we're supporting the municipalities, so municipalities aren't having to rely on increasing the property tax. So housing is a huge nut to crack, but we need to talk about it because that's going to have a huge impact on this conversation.
Horus,
we need tax relief for our elderly. There's no question about it. And we need to revert the tax breaks that we got in 2006 and 2007 for our wealthiest citizens. The highest marginal tax rate needs to revert it back to pre-2006 levels. It's a big problem in our community, and I'll tell you why. If you look at the property values from the year 2000, if you bought a house here for about $100,000, today, that same house is worth $600,000. But if you bought that house when you were 55, now you are in your late 60s, early 70s, and you're on a fixed income, you still have to pay taxes for the value of that house, which has increased sixfold. So that's a significant piece, and I think we can't have an honest discussion when it comes to senior needs. We don't talk about tax relief for them. The other big issue is home care aides. Right now, the average home care aide makes about $11.50 an hour, and the governor, this is something I will give her credit for, has slated about $11 million to bring that up by about 80 cents. But that still brings us below what they pay the average person in Massachusetts. The average home care worker in Massachusetts caring for our ill and our elderly are making $15 an hour. So one of the problems that we're seeing is that we're losing some of these folks just from pure market competition to Massachusetts. So while I think it's a good first start, we really have to do more when it comes to what these home care workers are getting paid. Thank you.
David Amos.
Yes, I agree with a lot of what was just stated, but in order to get right down to Pat's answer is how can I gain your vote? Well, you're going to see me coming out to the different groups in various places to ask you what it is that what you most need. And a lot of the things we are hearing are just what Dawn, David, John, and all my colleagues up here have stated. We need better transportation. We need to have that feeling of independence. If you don't necessarily need full-time care, you just need someone to come stop by, maybe do some light shopping. We don't do enough with public transportation because just going to the grocery store becomes a monumental task if you're not on a bus route. A lot of the things that they've cut down on were rides. If you needed a ride from the state, you can call it 48 hours in advance and get that. If you have something inside of that 48 hours in advance, you can no longer get that. We've also been finding that the subcontracting out a lot of these transportation. That is one of the biggest things that I've heard by going to these places and meeting these our aging or seasoned population, I call it. And it's growing exponentially. We just went to the King House the other night, and there was a very stunning number that how quickly we are growing in Rhode Island. It wasn't too stunning to me because it seems like I'm catching up to certain people, I guess, with age. But, it's a great place to be. We just need to do a better place. But I can assure you this, Pat, wherever you are, whoever you are out there, I will always be there to answer my phone, and I'll be your conduit, your voice up in the Senate for you. Thank you.
And Kim Ripley.
Thank you, Pat. I too am a boomer. I'm at the tail end of the boomer generation, 1963. I think that the aging population in Rhode Island is significant. We are on the precipice when the 2020 census comes out to actually lose a congressional seat because we don't have people coming into the state. I think one of the things that we could do, that I have seen other states do, is to eliminate the tax on military retirement pay and also on survivor benefits. The numbers have shown that the actual number of retirees who collect military retirement pay is about 3,000 individuals from the Defense Finance and Accounting System. What that does, and most people don't really understand how it works. If somebody does 20 years in military service, they only get 50% of what their base pay is at that pay rate. So they have to go out and get another job. So you're also talking about individuals who may retire in their 40s, 50s, who then will go out, get another job, they will bring money into the population, and they will also use the GI Bill. So if they're not utilizing it, they can transfer that new post-9/11 GI Bill to their child, and that child can go to one of our universities. That's bringing in federal dollars, not taxpayer dollars, and that money, because they get an allowance for housing, go to rent, goes to groceries, it goes into the local economy. There are hundreds of millions of dollars that come from veterans who retire. Tennessee and Kentucky have totally flip-flopped their population because of just that one thing. We're losing folks to Massachusetts who don't tax military retirement.